And this was reinforced by Holman and colleagues who found that actually children who were visited and had that connection with their biological families seemed to have fewer placement breakdowns in foster care and fewer behavioural difficulties. So what about adoption? Well, Brzezinski found that contact in adopted families actually sort of facilitated or set the forum for open communication around adoption, which in turn facilitated adjustment and identity formation. And in a study in the UK by Neil in 2009, she demonstrated also that direct face-to-face contact appeared to improve communication in the adoptive families around adoption issues, but actually there was no associated changes in behavioural adjustment. But again, because of methodological difficulties, potentially other risk factors will have been involved in why these children may have had more behavioural difficulties to begin with, possibly. Also, there's lots of difficulties in the UK in particular around contact with birth families who could potentially have been abusive, whether there's a risk of re-traumatising children and what the impact this might have on the child's development and adjustment. And Loxtekamp in 2009 also highlighted the fact that when there are when contact is planned between these family members, that there seems to be a tendency to sort of minimise or gloss over these past abusive histories, which can actually fuel fantasising and misperceptions. So she was very, very keen to sort of suggest that information is accurately portrayed to the child as being able to understand and accept one's history, whether or not it be something that you reject or if it's a difficult experience, is nonetheless as important as having a nice and maybe a bit more positive history. Thank you.
So there is really no assumption that contact with the birth family is always good. We need to think that and have always in mind that our interest is the best interest of the child, and that anything will be good that promotes this child's development, and also if it can fulfill the tasks of adoption. Elspeth Neal and colleagues did a study in the University of East Anglia last year about the benefits and challenges of adoption, of contact in adoption and fostering. So I'm going first to summarize a bit of what the tasks of adoption generally are, and I will compare them with what they found could be beneficial for both, for the triad really, for both the child, the birth family and the adoptive or fostering family. So for the child, one of the first tasks of adoption really is to attach to the adoptive family at the same time as dealing with the loss of the birth family. And with this sort of dual connection of birth family and adoptive is achieving a sense of identity. For the birth family, the big task is to deal with the loss of the child, obviously, but also getting to accept their new role as biological or birth father or mother, and versus psychological, that would be the adoptive or foster family. And for the adoptive family, it's about building relationships. It's about, again, accepting this new role and integrating the child in the family. So I've done a little table with the benefits and challenges for the child. I will illustrate it with an example from our clinic. This is a girl, she's 17 years old now. But she was adopted when she was around 5. She was adopted with her sister from a really neglectful family. And the adoptive she presented with quite severe behavioral problems, her and her sister, during early childhood. But then she came to our attention a couple of years ago when adoptive mother died. So this triggered in her all sorts of issues, because it has been like the double abandonment. It's not only the birth family, it's now adoptive mother died. So adoptive father could not cope with his own grief, plus the two girls who were really, their behavior was escalating, and they were getting into really serious fights among the two of them, and they ended up in foster care. The issues, this girl now is going to be 18 soon and wants to contact her birth family. So if we focus on the table, I mean, it would be beneficial. Well, this girl is already quite emotionally dysregulated, so she presents in crisis, she self-harms, she threatens suicide, and this kind of behavior. So technically, one of the benefits of this contact could be helping the child or the adolescent regulate their emotions. We are a bit unsure in this case, and obviously this is an older child who came from foster care. So in this case, contact is going to be a challenge. In terms of dealing with the loss, I mean, it can help theoretically facilitate the process of grieving, and also minimizing fantasies, because sometimes these children, for them, the birth family is like idealized, or the other way around. So meeting them can be quite helpful for that. And also it's a big reassurance that they are well. But at the same time, the challenge in terms of loss is that, you know, this contact may really unsettle the child or the adolescent. And sometimes we know this contact is happening unsupervised through the internet and things like that, which can be quite dangerous as well. But we know from research that contact for the child is beneficial in terms of the sense of self, in terms of the self-esteem, belonging, etc. But can be a challenge as well if there is a mismatch with the birth family after all these years having been fostered by, adopted by another family. For the birth family, there are all sorts of benefits as well, but also some difficult issues. I'm thinking about a case we have who is a girl whose mum has mental health problems. She has personality issues, borderline personality disorder, trastorno limite. So this is a woman who's very dramatic and she really parentifies the girl. So actually either cries and uses her as comfort, and obviously the girl, you know, found that really hard. Then this girl was taken in foster care with a very balanced single woman who was in her 40s, and she has done very well with this lady. She's in long-term foster care rather than adopted. Adoptive mother wants more and more contact, but we know that contact in this case really unsettles the girl. But so we don't know in this case, in terms of the benefits, we don't know if it helps with the grief process really. For the birth mother, because it's actually exposing her to the girl, and there is always this big drama when they meet. And a challenge is mom clearly has unresolved issues about giving the child away, so that's quite hard. It can help mom to negotiate her new role if she has contact. But again, because she has all these social problems, mental health problems, it's a challenge. She comes late to contact, sometimes she cancels in the last minute, so obviously that's very tricky. And for the child, again, is reassurance of seeing, for the mother, is seeing her child doing well in this new family and having the sense of continuity and contribution for the child's sense of identity. But obviously, in abusive families, you know, this is a problem. You know, abuse can repeat in the sessions. And in terms of the adoptive family, my vignette this is a boy who comes from Turkish origin, and he was adopted when he was again 6 or 7 by a family. The mother was British, white British. The father was Indian, so it feels like he was a bit, you know, the match was done only on the color of the skin, that's all. But clearly the child, when he was adopted, had already very clear alliances with his own sort of social class, which is something quite important in Britain. So basically this boy was quite aligned with more working class sort of, he was really more a street boy, streetwise. And these parents could not, they were really very academic, could not understand this boy, and would say things like, well, he has an extensive library, why doesn't he read? Things like that. He presents with very severe behavioral problems, and he has attention deficit disorder as well, which on medication he has done very well. So he has managed to finish his studies. But now he's older, and one of the things we thought in the clinic in terms of how to help him was to invite the birth father to family sessions, because we knew that birth father was in contact with adoptive father. And the birth parents, the two of them, when they were young and when the child had to be put in for adoption, were in quite a chaotic lifestyle. They were drinking, using drugs, etc. But we know from adoptive father that actually the birth father had managed to put that life to aside, and he finished education and now he has a job. So we felt sometimes in terms of narrative therapy and repeating scripts, how this man can be really valuable for the adolescent. So that's where we are at the moment, trying to get birth father to help us in therapy. So I'm aware of time. So, well, this is a bit what I have been telling you about the challenges for the adoptive family. And I will quickly go through these. So these are the factors. It's a really heavy slide, so I won't go through it. But obviously, the factors associated with problematic and successful contact, again, from this study from the East Anglia University, are going to be, if both adopters and birth family don't agree with contact, if they have a negative attitude about adoption, if there is no connection between the child and birth family, for example, all that is not going to help contact. But if there is good security, if adoptive parents have a good and secure attachment with the child and they are quite safe in their relationship, they can really help promote that. So then contact is going, has many more chances of being successful.
So even though contact issues are primarily dealt with by social services in the UK, when a child is under our team, or we have connection with the child's family or foster carers, because of mental health reasons, we will often be asked by social workers if issues around contact come up. We'll be asked to advise around whether contact is advisable, and that might be during court proceedings or after, or when considering a pre-adoptive placement, and we'll be asked to make recommendations around that. So when we're asked to do those sorts of things, these are some of the things that we'll take into consideration when making those recommendations. We base all of our recommendations on a comprehensive assessment, which involves understanding child factors, birth factors, and adoptive factors that might facilitate or hinder contact, and which also may mean that we have to slightly modify things to make contact more successful. So outlined here are, for example, understanding of the child's IQ may inform decisions about how contact is managed, how that's going to be explained to the child, and potentially different methods would be used to contain that for the child. The child's age will be a factor. Have they been a long time with the birth family already? Or were they removed at birth? Those sorts of issues will come about. Mental health of the child, trauma, etc. And the same factors will be taken into consideration for the birth family and adoptive parents as well.